Resident Evil 4 is my favorite game of all time, and one of the main reasons is the amount of control you have over your weaponry throughout the game. Do you like rifles and shotguns? We got them. How about a mine thrower, or an infinite ammo Tommy gun? Or maybe just a pistol? Speaking of that, can you beat Resident Evil 4 using only the handgun? Now, I'm not going to lie, the title is kinda clickbait, kinda not. The only weapon I can use is the starting handgun, but I'm also allowed to use action attacks like kicking and suplexing. This is because if a ganado gets too close to you and you go to shoot them, it'll still perform the action attack over the shot. I also allowed the knife because I figured I'd run out of ammo and would eventually get stuck. If this bothers you, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do next time. On to brass tacks. I started this run in professional mode thinking that it wouldn't be too hard. I was very wrong about that. I almost never had ammo, and when I did it was gone so fast it didn't matter anyway. I ended up getting stuck at a part that I'll talk about later in the episode, and I had to restart the whole game on normal. It helped, but not very much. I was very tempted to use the Special 2 outfit, so I didn't have to worry about Ashley, but I went against it and picked the normal outfit because I don't play with that on very often. I started off with a little bit of dialogue with these two fine gentlemen, and Leon proceeded with a one-liner.
I'm sure you boys didn't just tag along so we could sing Kumbaya together at some Boy Scout bonfire. Then again, maybe you did.
We'll be covering most of those throughout this playthrough. Handgun rang me up on my cellular device and told me to save the president's daughter, and then I was finally able to start the game. Once I was free from cutscenes, I shot the crow for the jewel it had and decided to do some breaking and entering into this man's house. He wasn't down for that, so I had to put him down. His friends made my two fine gentlemen get killed, and I had to repay the favor. One thing to note about normal over professional is that ammo is much more common in normal. I looted some boxes, saved a wolf dog, and killed more people on my way to the village. Inside of the village, I was prompted to look and chose not to. Instead, I ran straight into the middle of the town and proceeded to massacre the bunch of them. Many shots, kicks, and knives later, they all decided they had had enough of my reckless slaughter and went to church to pray for their lost loved ones. One-liner.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Honestly, at this point in the game, there isn't too much of a challenge using only the handgun, and that goes for professional mode too. This challenge didn't start to get really hard until the castle. I looted the whole town, and for anyone that didn't know, there's some handgun ammo right over here. Once I left the main part of the village, I was in one of my favorite places, Egg Farm. Well, at least that's what I call it. I didn't shoot a single blue medallion because I didn't need another handgun, and I proceeded to kill what I presume were more innocent people. I grabbed the beer stein and made my way to Leon Kennedy and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I shot some guy with dynamite and shot a jewel out of a nest. I made my way into the creepy house and proceeded to find an even finer gentleman, Luis Serra. Then Leon decided to do something stupid and we both got captured. Leon's pretty good at that. Leon got injected with the Las Plagas parasite and then proceeded to have a lovely conversation with Luis about how great they both are. Then this guy comes in, and I don't know how he managed it, but Leon and Luis got freed because this guy attacked perfectly between the two of them and cut their cuffs off. Yeah, I can't make this stuff up. Another one-liner.
Sorry I couldn't get in touch sooner, but I was a bit tied up.
I check my surroundings and get called behind a house by a man that I presume is going to kill me. He didn't, and he even let me upgrade my handgun. Now, here's an important note for this playthrough. I really wanted to kill as many ganados as I could, and this worked for the vast majority of the beginning of the game, when enemies were easy to kill and ammo was plentiful. I had to change my tone about halfway through the game, and as lame as it is, I don't think I could have beat the game like that. Anyway, I killed literally everyone in this portion of the map just to say I did, and made my way to the next area. It had a handful of ganados, but they were no match for my slightly better than normal handgun. I blew up some more dynamite, and I even went fishing for a bit. When I was outside, I screwed up getting the treasure and reloaded so I could not do that. Inside of the building, I quickly solved this door puzzle and was greeted to a cutscene in which Leon literally gets chokeslammed by the same guy who just had him captured. Told you he's good at it. I spent a little time looting the house and made sure to kill the guy in the bathroom minding his own business. When I opened the door, I was presented with my first dilemma, Dr. Salvador. See, I was still at the point in this run where I wanted to kill everything, but I specifically avoided having to fight a chainsaw man in the first level. The real problem was ammo. If I ran out, I couldn't just knife him to death, I'd probably get decapitated. so I just ran past everyone and fired a few shots to get through the bigger horde. I was back in the village now, and it would appear that it was more populated than I would have expected. I spent my time killing them all, and I even found a golden egg. What a treat. With all the villagers dead out here, I can finally make my way to the church and finish off the ones that went inside to pray for their loved ones, which, if any of them were still alive before, they were most certainly dead now. Sadly, there were no ganados on my way to the church, but there was some treasure, and the merchant even popped up down there too, somehow. One day I'll figure out how he gets everywhere before me. I climbed the ladder that led into the graveyard, and killed this poor woman for no reason at all. There was some more dynamite. Where did they get this stuff, really? I had a hell of a time opening this contraption up, and Hunnigan yelled at me for taking the scenic route. On the scenic route, I was met with a few more ganados, and dispatched them easily. I killed a snake, got an egg, and made my way to what appeared to be an arena. Don't worry, we'll use it later. I stopped by the merchant on the lower level, and donned my hat and whip again. The swamp was a little more difficult than the other areas so far, and that was because if a ganado falls in the water, I have a difficult time seeing them. It all worked out in the end, and I killed many snakes along the way too, which is weird if I'm pretending to be Indiana Jones in all honesty. Now it's on to the first boss fight of the run, Del Lago. So, I can't shoot Del Lago with my handgun. I have to use the harpoons, but I'm not going to count it because I have no choice but to kill Del Lago with the harpoons. I actually did a pretty bad job, and got knocked off the boat a few times, but it eventually fell to all of my harpoons, and I was almost dragged into the lake by its dead corpse. Leon goes into the cabin, he passes out, and he has some nightmares. What fun. We open up the beginning of Chapter 2 with a one-liner.
Leon, it's been 6 hours since our last transmission. I was starting to get worried.
Don't you mean lonely?
I then loot the cabin and decide to not go fishing because I'm already pretty good on healing items. I go across the lake to loot the merchant's building and upgrade my pistol again. I make my way back to the cabin and through the door to the next area. Here we get introduced to Adult Plagas Type A. I get an incredibly lucky critical hit and make my way down the side of the cliff. I need to get into the waterfall, but to do that I have to reroute the water flow. I shoot some boxes and hop across to pull the lever. Then I get attacked by a mob of ganados and shoot them off of the box platforms to conserve ammo. Once I'm inside of the waterfall, I retrieve the church door insignia and make my way back to the merchant next to the arena. Time to put it to use because the next boss fight is against El Gigante. He's a pretty beefy boy, and he gets some good damage in. Though, after a clip and a half of ammo, he goes down to one knee, and I climb up top to slash at his... whatever that is. That wolf dog I saved earlier decided to come help me by being a distraction, and with that, I was easily able to finish off the El Gigante with 2 bullets to spare. Now that I was laughably low on ammo, I had to make my way back to the church. It's a good thing the only enemies in my path are dogs right next to the church, and I decided to ignore them anyways. Finally, inside of the church, I look around for a bit and climb up top to mess around with the light puzzle. When I finish the puzzle, the gates open and we can get to the real mission. Making sure Ashley doesn't get one-shot by everyone. Once we get back to the main floor, we get introduced to Lord Osmond Sadler, or as I like to affectionately refer to him, Darth Sidious. Blah blah blah, exposition. Oh no, Leon and Ashley have been infected with Las Plagas. James Bond moment. I take a moment and loot the room, then exit the church through the side door. I make quick work of the ganados in the way by lighting this cart on fire, and we return to the village, only this time it's night. It's definitely harder at night because it's more difficult to see and the ganados can now breathe fire. I kill them all in a timely fashion and re-loot the whole village considering everything spawns back in this time around. The next stop is Egg Farm, but there are no chickens anymore sadly. I tell Ashley to wait in the dumpster like the little garbage fire she is, and get to work systematically killing off all the ganados. The handgun was definitely starting to become better, and it really helped that I was scoring critical hits so often with it. Once all the ganados were dead, I relooted this place too and whistled for Ashley to come help me get over this gate. The first real challenge of the run starts now, the murder house. Before that though, I sell my handgun so I can buy it back and re-upgrade it. The reason behind this is that when I upgrade the ammo capacity of a weapon, it refills my clip, and I really needed that. Once we start to cross the bridge, we get pushed towards the cabin by a huge horde of ganados. Seriously, how big is this village? Inside of the cabin waits Lewis for some reason, and then the whole cabin gets surrounded by ganados. The only promising thing about this part of the game is that Lewis can do a large part of the work by giving you extra handgun ammo and just killing the ganados outright. The battle starts off pretty well with Lewis and I dispatching many ganados before he tells me to go upstairs. This is the worst part of the cabin, mainly because now you have to worry about ganados coming through the second story windows and from downstairs. I ended up biting the big one more than once because this game calculates damage like crap. I eventually lucked out though, and I had a good run where Lewis gave me plenty of ammo and helped out a solid chunk. For a moment, I thought I was going to get trapped by these ganados, but the cutscene played, signaling the end of the fight. We were now on the final part of the village segment, Chapter 2-3. I take what items are left in the cabin, then I'm presented with a choice. Go through the left gate, or go through the right gate. The left gate has many ganados and some chainsaw enemies. The right gate has one El Gigante. I decided to take the right gate because I didn't want to get decapitated. I also didn't really plan on fighting El Gigante anyways. Once I make it through the El Gigante path, we're on our way to the gondola, where I get many good shots on the ganados riding along. Chapter 2-3 is a pretty short chapter, and I'm already on my way to the boss fight, Chief Mendez. This fight can be a pain in the ass sometimes, and that's with the use of other weapons. It starts off with Leon getting chokeslammed again, but he comes back with a one-liner.
Hasta luego.
Now, I know I just said that this fight could be hard sometimes, but it wasn't that bad this time around. I didn't really dodge, I just took most of his attacks and kept shooting. Once the first phase was over, he lost his legs and took to the rafters. This part was a little harder because he did more damage without his legs for some reason. But I just shot this barrel and that pretty much killed him. All I had to do was shoot him a few more times. With Mendez dead, I take his fake eye and make my way back to before the gondola. I open the door with it and get attacked by a crazy man driving a truck. One perfect shot later and he loses control and I'm home free. Sort of. A handful of ganados get out of the back of the truck, and what you're supposed to do is run towards the castle and trigger the cutscene. What I did was the exact opposite. I killed every ganado, which, thinking about it, was a huge waste of ammo, but oh well. I finish them off and make my way to the castle. This is when the challenge goes off the rails. The first area was full of loot, and a merchant as well. We get the chance to upgrade our handgun some more, and make our way to the interior castle gate. It's heavily guarded by zealots, but I didn't care. I strolled right up there and got actually killed by flaming debris. I actually didn't expect that to happen, and the next time I ran fast enough to avoid it. Now I have to kill the zealots manning the catapults, which is easy enough if you can get in the right spot, otherwise you get hit with more flaming debris. The last one is a bit of a pain because you need to be in its view for a good shot, and you usually end up getting hit. Once they all lay dead, I started to turn the crank as fast as I could, because if you can raise the cannon up and fire it, it despawns the rest of the enemies. So that's what I did. Now would be an excellent time to mention that this is the part of the game that I start to manipulate. If you load into a new room, it counts as a checkpoint, and I really use that a lot the rest of the run. It's also useful for making pots drop the exact items you need, like handgun ammo. In the next area, Lewis explains that we need to get the Plaga parasite out of our bodies, and then he runs off again. More zealots in the next room make me waste my ammo, but there was some on the table. I head all the way into the back storage room for the key, and shoot this barrel to buy myself some time to escape. Now we're finally in the castle interior. This is where we meet Salazar, one of my favorite characters. One-liner.
No thanks, bro.
Salazar shuts the pathway to where we need to go, and now we have to go on a wild goose chase to get the ornaments we need. The first challenge of the castle also reared its head. Garradors. Garradors are these blind guys with huge Wolverine-like claws, and they have a great sense of hearing. They can take quite a bit of damage, and I know that I won't be able to kill him with my handgun, so I decide to fight it with my knife instead. Now, this sounds kinda insane, but it's not that hard actually. All you have to do is wait for his claws to be retracted, then run up to him until he takes them out, and immediately start walking backwards. He'll almost always attack with his charge attack, leaving him vulnerable to a knife. The hardest part of this fight is timing. I eventually kill him and turn the switch to stop the fire horses from breathing fire. The next area is actually the worst room in the game, the water room. Remember how at the beginning of the episode I told you I started on professional and then switched over to normal? Well, this was almost the reason why. It took me so goddamn long to actually figure out the proper way to get this done in professional. well over 100 attempts, and at least 4 hours. I did eventually get it, and was able to continue, so knowing how to do it in professional made this part incredibly easy and normal. I start off by attempting to shoot the crossbow guys, which are nowhere to be seen because they are a professional only enemy for this room. I spent a few minutes trying to manipulate a critical shot on these guys, but decided to give up because I didn't need to kill them anyway. I just ran down the stairs and stood on the switches to raise the lever. Then I ran all the way back to the entrance and left the room and re-entered. Now I had a checkpoint saved where the crank was already up. All I had to do was crank the stairs down and I was home free. But I wanted to try something I read about online. If you activate the crank animation and then quickly exit it, it's supposed to make Leon invincible while cranking, as long as you keep doing it. It actually worked, but Ashley was taking too much damage, so I just reloaded the checkpoint. This time, I waited for the zealots to get close, then started running to the crank so I had time to crank it. And it almost worked, but Ashley got grabbed and I shot her. On accident. Definitely. The next try, I waited a little bit longer and tried again. It worked this time. By the way, this also works on professional if you're having troubles with the crank. Now was the easy part of the water room. All I had to do was guard Ashley and make sure she didn't die while she turned the cranks. Piece of cake. We leave the room and Ashley starts coughing up blood. Leon, being the gentleman he is, asks if she's okay. Ashley, being the horrible human being she is, totally freaks out on him and gets captured. That's something that Ashley's good at. We open up this chapter with a one-liner.
Thanks. That should keep me company, 'cause boredom kills me.
Leon was referring to the Novista doors and the sewers I had to go into. Not much to talk about with these guys right now. I just ran away because I definitely didn't have the ammo to kill them. Though I did screw up and I forgot to turn the valve, which seriously could have screwed me over. But I lucked out. I jumped past some big axes and interrupted some sort of ritual in the next room. I talked to the merchant and left for the room that goes one of two ways. Incredibly easy, or very much a pain in the ass. See, this zealot in the red cloak will always run away if you aim at him, and if he gets far enough away, he activates the Gatling gun in the center room. We don't want that to happen. And luckily it didn't. I've got pretty good at chasing him around, and as long as you're next to him while he's running, he won't activate the Gatling gun. I encounter Salazar, and it amazes me how many one-liners Leon has up his sleeve.
If you don't need me, then get off my back, old man!
Salazar sicks his men on me, and I get to work. We're still at the point in the run where the handgun is a viable option, but it doesn't take long for that to end. I run up the stairs and push a button. Then some rocket launcher guys appear from behind a painting. I run into another room and press the secret switch, and then I'm greeted by more rocket launcher guys. They die in one shot, and I am rewarded with an ornament for the door. I leave post-haste and make my way to the maze. I chew the fat with Salazar a bit more, and make my way into the dog-infested place. Not too much to say here. I just ran from the dogs and collected the keys for the door as fast as I could. We get introduced to Ada Wong in this part, and then move on to the next chapter. One funny thing to note about not killing the dogs is that they can come into the safe room and attack you during this part. I just ran away from them and went into the wine bottle room. I thought now would be a good time to show everyone what I have collected, and it's pretty good. The problem is I have a lot of ammo, but I need to save it for a very specific point coming up. I shoot the wine bottle to open the door and fall into a trap. Inside of the trap are some ganados and a Garrador. I had no choice but to escape, and I ran away like a little baby. This room had some fun new parasites to deal with. After their host is dead, they jump off and then you have to kill them too. Aside from that though, this room was pretty easy and I made it through relatively unscathed. The next part of the game always makes me a little sad. Lewis enters the room and then proceeds to get impaled by whatever the hell Sadler has under his cloak. And then Lewis gives Leon some pills to stop the parasites from taking control of his body for a little bit longer. Then Lewis dies, and we go on to an incredibly fast chapter. The reason this chapter is so fast is because we have to play as Ashley. First, I have to save her. After I shoot Ashley out of the trap, some zealots come to try and kidnap her back, but they only take a few shots to kill. This is one of the main reasons I saved my bullets, because if I didn't kill all of the zealots, I wouldn't be able to progress any farther. Once they're all dead, Ashley takes the key from one of the bodies, and we get to take control. This part of the game can be incredibly easy after you've played it so many times. I just run past the first zealot and crawl through a hole to the next room. I throw a fire lamp at this zealot and start turning the crank. Then I throw another fire lamp and start turning the other crank. Once through, I take a moment to loot this room and make my way deeper into the level. This button puzzle was easy enough to solve, and I made sure to take this slate for a puzzle that we have to do later. This hallway is incredibly sketchy as I make my way to the next puzzle. I have to line up all the pieces perfectly so I can fit the slate I picked up earlier into it, which was easy enough. Now the door opens, and I could grab this thing for another puzzle, and another ornament piece. Now the knights become active, and if you wait for most of them to enter the room, it's quite easy to escape. Now I have to go all the way back to that room I looted earlier, and put this thing in that thing, and then I'm home free to return to Leon. With Ashley back, our first stop is the lava room. You know, the lava room, a staple in all castles full of a religious cult. Something I learned this playthrough is that you can shoot the fire-breathing dragons down before anyone is in them, which is nice. The only real challenge in this room is the last dragon, and it's not even that bad. You just have to stay far enough back to not start on fire. Now we have all of the ornaments we need to open that door in the main hall, so Ashley and I ride another tram back to the hall and put all the ornaments in the wall. Now is when the shit really starts to hit the fan. In this next area, we need goblets to continue forward, and one of the rooms is easy, and one of them is hard. I start with the easy one, and I have to do a quick floor switch puzzle. Then Salazar has the room locked, and spikes descend from the ceiling to kill us. Once I disarm it, Ashley gets trapped in a hall with a killer drill machine, but since these guys always die in one shot, it was pretty easy. Now that we have one of the grails, we move on to the more difficult room, the night room. It's pretty easy to bring Ashley in here on accident, so I made her wait outside. Once I pick up the grail, knights start to come out from the walls. It's pretty easy to knock off the helmets of the knights, but it's what underneath that makes it difficult. They have the razor plaga. Now, not only are they hard to kill, they can do damage from a decent distance away. I eventually managed to kill them all, and more knights came out of the walls. These knights are worse because they have the head-eating plaga under their helmets, and I was running pretty low on ammo. I ended up having to kill the last knight with my knife, which, if done carefully, isn't that hard to do. With all of the knights dead, we can proceed to another room that almost everyone hates, the second Novistador room. To get there, all I have to do is put the grails in their slots. But first, I sold my handgun again and bought it back to re-upgrade for another clip. I needed some ammo for the Novistador room, so I shot most of these zealots in their legs so I had time to put the grails in. Now that I had a checkpoint in here, I took advantage of it, and I tried to get some handgun ammo. It took a few tries, but I did get some eventually. Now we enter the Novistador room for real, and Ashley gets kidnapped again. The easiest way I could think of getting out of this room relatively unscathed was to aggro the Novistadors, then run out of the room and trigger a new checkpoint. Once you trigger a new checkpoint, they aren't hostile until you open the door, but they're also all flying, which means they go down in one shot. Some still got through, but I eventually made it across the room and lowered the bridge. Now I had to go help Ashley, and to do that, I had to change the side that the bridge was on. I killed the zealots in my way, and I went into the clock tower. All I had to do was shoot the wood out of the gears, and climb to the top and throw a lever. Climb back down was a little difficult, but nothing I couldn't handle. The bridge to get across was another story. It had 3 shielded zealots, which are incredibly hard to kill with a handgun, so I had to bait them to attack. Then a crap ton more of them spawn in. I literally run past all of them and get into the room that definitely took the longest to get past. This room had 2 Gyrodors, side by side. It also had some zealots. I take a few dozen attempts to manipulate a critical shot on the zealots, because if they attack while I'm attacking the Gyrodors, I'm screwed. Now that I'm alone with the 2 Gyrodors, I have to tempt one of them to come down here to fight me. And I can't leave this little spot at the beginning of the room either, because if I do, more zealots will spawn. Needless to say, it took an incredibly long time to kill both of the Gyrodors with my knife. And sometimes they would both be down here at the same time, which made it that much harder. Once they were both dead, the doors open back up, and we almost get impaled by Salazar. Now, here comes something a little controversial. We could buy the Striker shotgun, which is the main item we need for the Ditman glitch. For anyone that doesn't know what the Ditman glitch is, it just makes Leon do everything faster at the expense of not being able to do certain things, like healing. I planned on using the Ditman glitch, and my reasoning is this. I'm not firing it to kill enemies, I'm just using it to achieve a goal that I can't without it. If you feel like this violates the run, let me know down below, and I'll make sure that I don't use the Ditman glitch next time I do a challenge. Okay, time to pick up the pace a bit. The next fight was with Verdugo, Salazar's right-hand man. I tried to kill him with the Ditman glitch and my knife, but he was so much faster than me, and I'd eventually run out of liquid nitrogen canisters to use on him. What I had to do was just wait it out until the elevator arrived, which kinda sucks, but I figured I wouldn't be able to kill him with just my knife. Now comes a pretty fun room, the Salazar statue room. It was pretty easy to kill the zealots with the Ditman glitch and my knife, and all I had to do was flip some switches. Then we have to run away from the giant mechanical statue, and we enter the last main room of the castle. This room was pretty easy too, and the only trouble I had was on the elevator. See, the elevator only moves if there are less than 2 people on it, and I badly needed all of my ammo for the next boss fight. So what I had to do was Ditman knife all of them to death. It was hard, but I eventually made it to the top. Now we come to a very sad spot for this challenge. We have to fight Salazar now, and it's not easy with just the pistol. I knew very well what I was going to do when it came to the fight, and I had a battle strategy. I would waste all of my ammo on Salazar, then pick up this handgun ammo and this handgun ammo. Then I'd go back up and waste the rest. It would never be enough to kill him. Lucky for me, there are some Plaga that constantly respawn in the lower level, and sometimes they drop handgun ammo. The problem is that even with the Ditman knife glitch, they could easily get attacks on me, and the ratio of healing items I was using to ammo I was acquiring would never work. I loaded the checkpoint and tried again, but this time I used my handgun to try and kill the Plaga, thinking that the amount I wasted would eventually add up to a higher total afterwards. It only sort of worked, and the Plaga practically stopped giving me ammo. I knew that I was in big trouble, and I couldn't kill Salazar without ammo. I tried for about an hour, and then I just gave up. It is in all technicality possible to beat Salazar with just a pistol, but I couldn't do it. I went to the merchant, and I bought a rocket launcher to kill Salazar. So no, I can't beat Resident Evil 4 with just a handgun, but that's not going to stop me from beating the rest of the challenge. But I also don't want the video over 30 minutes, and we have a lot more stuff to cover. So tune in for part 2, which should be out in a few days. Until then, stay safe out there, and peace out.